Testing. Mic check. 1 2 1 2. Microphone checker. Swinging soul lecture. Close Welcome back to the Astrocast. I'm your host, Rue. Today is Wednesday, May 14th, 2025. The full moon has just passed us. We're at about a 96% waning gibbous moon. Take that for what you will. To me, it just means the damn thing's finally going away. Oh, how have you guys been? I've missed you so much. It feels like it's been a year and it's only been, a couple of weeks, but I've had a lot going on. So sometimes we have to step away from the things that we really, really love to do in order to take care of the things that are unfortunately important. So just to give you a little update, I had a little bit of a health scare over these last couple of weeks. I avoided going to the emergency room. Probably shouldn't do that, but I had my upcoming physical with my doctor today, actually. And I sat down and talked with him, and kind of what I thought was going to be the case was indeed the case. So I've got high blood pressure. A lot of that is due to extra weight that I carry. I've been working very hard this year to lose said weight, but a whole lot of it has to do with stress. And this is a show about telescopes and space and beautiful pictures. But I'm going to take a moment just to talk to you guys. I'm not lecturing, but I am telling you because I didn't take care of myself for a long, long time growing up. And I got very lucky. I have a lot of friends that were not so lucky. And literally, as I say that, you can hear my dogs deciding that they're going to guest star on today's episode of the Astrocast. So I'm telling you this because the number one thing that my doctor and myself was concerned about is my stress levels. I've got a pretty stressful job, but I don't think that that's the issue at all, honestly, because I really do love my job. It can be stressful at times and it can be super busy. Really, it's my home life that is stressful. I live in a really stressful environment, and, your home is supposed to be your sanctuary where you find peace. I work from home. And then when I'm off, I'm not going to get into details because it's like personal stuff, but I have a very happy marriage with my wife. I will say that that's not the issue, but just really, really high stress levels to the point where I was breaking out in hives. Like if you were to see my left arm right now, you would be like, "Ew, dude, what's wrong with you?" My doctor took one look at me and he said it's stress. So I say all that. I'm going to obviously be making some changes. I'm going to exercise more. I already eat healthy. I cut out all sweets of all kinds about a month ago. So I've been working on this for, over a year now. I went to my first physical, I guess 3 years ago. And when I say my first physical, I mean like since I was a kid pretty much, because I grew up in a household where seeing the doctor was not normalized because we didn't have health insurance. So I can remember less than a handful of times seeing a doctor as a kid. So if you don't have a doctor, please go get one. Please go do your physical at a minimum, because what I found is all the things that like people are scared of going to the doctor because they're afraid they're going to find out they're dying from X, Y, or Z. Well, let me tell you something. If you are dying from X, Y, or Z, the only thing the doctor is going to do is extend your life. So, being scared is one thing, but the thing is most stuff isn't incurable that we run into on a day-to-day basis. And if you can catch it early by doing things like going to a physical, you can avoid a whole lot of pain down the road. Like right now, my high blood pressure, if I was not on blood pressure medicine, I could literally be dead from it right now from hypertension. I've got a friend whose kidneys failed because of hypertension and high blood pressure, and we almost lost him. And he's kind of playing with, house money at this point because he waited so long to go to the doctor. He ended up losing all function in both of his kidneys. He had to go to dialysis for years, and then, just last year he finally got a kidney transplant. Thank God for that. But even with that, he's still playing with house time because the body is constantly trying to reject an organ that is not its own. So that's all I'm going to say about that for now. But please, 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 if you haven't seen a doctor, and if you can't remember the last time you saw one, make an appointment. Just go see a general physician. It's really easy. You get in and out of there in half an hour. I went in and they drew blood. They usually did that last, but they wanted the people to go home for the lab. So they did that first. And then, I sat down, talked to my doctor for half an hour, explained what's going on. He made a couple of adjustments to my medications, gave me some very good advice that I am going to take to heart. And so that's all I'm going to say about that. I wanted to let you guys know why I wasn't around last week because I try to be as transparent as possible. I am also going to say I'm going to reserve the right to occasionally take a week off if I'm having a particularly stressful week. Then I'll probably just take the week off because this is a one-man operation. As you guys know, if you're longtime listeners, I kind of do everything myself, and I love doing it that way. Don't get me wrong, because it gives me, 100% of the creative input that goes into the show. But it's also a lot of work. You don't think it's a lot of work, but believe me, it's a lot of work. So thanks so much for everybody's kind messages that I got, particularly all of our Patreon/Discord members. Got a lot of kind messages from you guys, and I just really, really appreciate that. All right. So what else is new? We actually got quite a few topics to cover today. I've got some new gear that I want to talk to you guys about that I'm super excited about. So as you know, if you're a longtime listener of the show, I am a big fan of super portable astrophotography rigs. So what I've been working on for this upcoming summer is a very, very portable rig that I can take with me to do really awesome Milky Way shots. This is going to be the summer of the Milky Way for me. So don't get me wrong. I love setting up my telescope and doing deep field imaging, but I don't have too many Milky Way photos that I'm proud of yet. And I was thinking about that, and I've got a couple that I really like, but if I compare them, and I know you shouldn't compare yourself to others because there will always be greater and lesser people than you. This is good advice for not just astrophotography, but for life in general. I'm just not very happy, and I know I can do better. And that's part of the fun of this hobby, right? Is we can always do better. So, I've been talking about my R5 a lot, and I, had considered astromodifying it and looked deeply into that, decided against it ultimately, just because there were too many trade-offs for not enough benefit, particularly for a camera that I use as often as I do for regular photography. To lose so many benefits just isn't worth it, frankly. That being said, though, the R5 is more than capable of taking really, really beautiful Milky Way photos. And I also have an R7 that I can use to also take Milky Way photos. So if I wanted to, set up 2 star trackers one night, I could do that. But one thing that I have not been a huge fan of since I started building my first Milky Way rig is the hardware that I was using. So I have the iOptron Sky Guider Pro. It's a very capable system. I'm going to choose my words carefully here because I really like iOptron stuff for the most part. Their filters are phenomenal, in my opinion. I love my CEM26. It's a fantastic mount, and even though it's an older mount now, and I probably wouldn't recommend it to anyone, just given that there's newer harmonic mounts on the market that can do the job better. It's still a phenomenal mount, and it's given me zero trouble. But the Skyguider, I just haven't been a big fan of it, honestly, from day one. I first of all, I don't like how it attaches. And when I say attaches, I mean the camera itself to the Skyguider Pro. It uses this kind of clamp system where you basically tighten down a bolt around the front where the polar scope is, basically. So essentially you polar align it first. And that's another thing I'm not a big fan of, is how you polar align the Skyguider Pro. I suppose if you have an iPolar that's different, but then you got to introduce a computer or a tablet, and that kind of defeats the purpose, in my opinion, of having a ultra portable setup. I want something that I can bring with me, fit entirely in one camera bag, and not have to mess with tablets, ASIers, etc., to get awesome photos. And I know that I'm, capable of doing this with the right setup. So the Skyguider Pro, I've had good success with it. Don't get me wrong. I've gotten some phenomenal shots with it. But it's got some other flaws to it. It uses a mini USB port for charging. Mini USB is kind of like, it's not the old micro USB that all of our phones used to have 10 years ago. Maybe not even 10 now that USB-C is everywhere. But a slightly fatter version of that you see a lot with things like, scanners, printers, stuff like that, mini USB. Anyway, it's not a great port. I don't like I say, I don't like the mounting system for it, for the camera. I don't like the way that you polar align it, even though I got a 90-degree elbow that lets me not have to get down on my hands and knees to polar align, which is wonderful. But even with all those, it's not great, in my opinion. So I started looking around at other options. And after reading a few reviews and watching YouTube videos, I basically stumbled upon the Move, Shoot, Move Nomad system. So this is a device that I have heard about quite a bit over the years, but for whatever reason, I never really considered it. I didn't put it in with the big boy brands, I guess you could say. And I was just like, who uses that when I've got, a CEM26? But I wasn't thinking of lightweight, easy, quick grab and go systems back then. I was thinking of, what can support the most weight and those sorts of things. But the reality is, if I get the R5 with a pretty chunky lens on it, it's still less than 5 pounds with a ball head and everything. So, the Move, Shoot, Move in its first iteration, it had some issues, but this newer iteration that they've released called the Move, Shoot, Move Nomad fixed a lot of those issues, such as the ball head coming loose when it would rotate on a specific axis, and some other little issues here and there. And I decided I would go ahead and order one. Actually, I did reach out to Move, Shoot, Move probably 6 months ago and asked them if they were interested in talking about their devices on the show, or sending me a review unit, or any of those sorts of things. And I never even heard back from the guys. So definitely no sponsorship here or anything like that. It'll just be my, honest opinions on the device. So I purchased this from, was it B&H that I got it from? It was High Point Scientific, also a partner of the show. If you ever need to buy anything from High Point, I always put the link to our affiliate link with High Point in the show notes. And the show gets a small cut of the proceeds if you purchase through those links at no extra cost to you. Thank you to everyone who does that. But I ordered the starter kit from them, and that basically came with the tracker itself, the Nomad. It comes with a really nice ball head, and then it also comes with their laser polar alignment system, I guess you could call it, which is one of the big reasons that I love this device. You can use, and I know you can technically use a laser to polar align with any device, but the way that this one is built, it actually has a spot where you screw the laser directly on to the device and it lines it up perfectly in line with the tracker. And then you essentially just shine that light directly at Polaris and Bob's your uncle. And then you're ready to take, long exposures. And the beauty of that is you don't have to, detach your camera and all that sort of stuff. And then, clamp down the little thing that you use for the Skyguider Pro in order to kind of get everything going. You can, put all your camera gear on, swing it out of the way, use the laser, and then you're already aligned. So you don't have to worry about shifting anything around whenever you reattach the camera. So I ordered that starter kit and let me think, what did I pay for that? All right, it was $259 for the starter kit for the Move Shoot Move. And like I say, that comes with the tracker itself. It comes with the ball head that they make, a really nice ball head that also has the clamp that goes on the bottom of your camera, the dovetail, and then the laser that you use to polar align. Now, I did need one or two other things in order to kind of fully complete the set. You could say they're optional, but I think ultimately they'll make life a lot easier. I ended up getting one of their Z mounts. And if you haven't seen one of these, it's a really interesting device, actually. You essentially can put your camera or ball head on top of it, and then it moves on one axis, and where there's basically two different elbows, it looks like a Z, and you can move it up and down in any direction. And essentially it allows you to get a perfect angle for your Milky Way shots or whatever it is that you're shooting at. So I paid $39.99 for that. And then I almost stuck with my Skyguider Pro mount for the mount. What is that called? The wedge, the mount for the mount, go figure. But I was looking at the reviews for the wedge that Move Shoot Move offers. And after carefully considering it, I plopped down another $100 to get that wedge. So not really cheap all in all. But still, if you look at a, I don't know, a Skyguider Pro or something along those lines, you will end up paying significantly less. Now, mind you, this is not like a Star Adventure GTI where it has all the go-to functionality and everything. While, I guess no, you wouldn't want to use it for anything remotely close to that. This is really a Milky Way machine is what it's for. You could go do a 50, maybe even an 85 millimeter lens and get good results. But really what it's made for is being an extremely portable star tracker for Milky Way shots. So all in, I guess, let's see, around $259 for the starter kit, another $100 for the wedge, and then another $40 for that Z mount. And I already have a tripod, of course. You do have to have your own tripod. I got several of those, so I'm good on that. So I guess what is that, about $400 all in for a really good sky tracker system? That in combination with my R5 and the Ioptron L Pro filter that I recently got is going to make for, I think, an incredible setup for Milky Way shots. Now, what I'm planning on doing, and I'm going to go for the first time in a couple of weeks here, I'll talk about it more shortly, is this summer, I want to once a month or once per new moon, essentially, I want to go to a different area and take a different Milky Way shot. So, I'll be looking for places that have something really interesting and unique in the foreground, and then obviously dark skies. So the goal is going to be Bortle 4 or lower for all shots. So I don't want to go somewhere that's Bortle 6 and attempt to make it work. That's not what I'm interested in doing. I want to go to really, really dark sky locations and get, just incredible shots of the Milky Way. I want to lower down my ISO. I want to do, minute plus exposures. And ideally, I want to not even have to use that clip-in L Pro filter, though I will if I need to. So, I've had nothing but cloudy skies here for the last 2 weeks. And though I just finally got the last piece in today, the wedge, that took the longest to come directly from Move Shoot Move. I have not had a chance to test all of the gear yet, but that's going to be changing, hopefully, knock on wood, at New Moon. I'm planning on making a trip with my sister and a friend up to, I'm thinking West Virginia is what I'm thinking, because they have some really incredible, really dark skies up there. In fact, if you look on the East Coast, within, a reasonable drive, West Virginia by far has the darkest skies. So I'm really excited to get up there and see it, because if you remember back in May of last year, May 10th, when we had the Aurora Borealis breakout, I drove about 3 hours north to Virginia, not West Virginia, but Virginia, up into a place called Indian Valley. And that was fairly high elevation, and technically a Bortle 4 on the map. And man, oh man, those skies looked every bit as good as the Bortle 1 that I get on the coast. And I assume that's due to elevation, because you're up so much higher and there's so much less atmosphere to contend with. So the place that I'm looking at now in West Virginia, like I say, it's a Bortle 2 site, and it is pretty significantly higher than the place that I was at Indian Valley. So I'm really hoping that the results are going to be awesome. The main thing is, though, is I'm just hoping we get clear skies, because, man, it has been nothing but clouds here for the last couple of weeks. We've had a ton of rain, which is a good thing. We really did need the rain, because my yard is just dying out there. But it looks like next Friday, I guess, let me think here, the 20. So Memorial Day weekend. So not this weekend, but the following weekend. Depending on what the weather is like, I hope to go Saturday night. I will go Sunday night if need be. But I'm using my old tricks that I've taught you guys, lightpollutionmap.info in combination with Google Earth. I also got a really cool recommendation from a friend of the show named Mark. He actually told me about a website that basically gives tips for places to camp while you're out in the wild. Let me see if I can find the name of it. Oh man, I was starting to lose hope there. I was looking through my bookmarks. I was like, I know I bookmarked it, but I couldn't find it. It's called iOverlander. A really, really cool app. Highly recommend you check it out. They have a website. I think it refers you to the app, though. The app is what most people use. Again, that's the letter I and then Overlander. Be sure to give that one a look. Super cool place. Lots of active users on it, and they're constantly making, live corrections, giving reviews on different places to stay, etc. It got me thinking, looking at iOverlander, how awesome would it be if there was an application that suggested spots for astrophotography? And you could even go as far as say, like, this is good for deep sky. This is good for Milky Way. I would love, love, love if somebody found like a really cool place up in West Virginia somewhere that had, a really unique foreground that was beautiful, to share that on an app so other people could also go check it out when they want to. Now, the thing that you'll find if you hang around with enough astronomy people is they don't like giving up their good spots too often. I am guilty of this. I know I've told you all many times about my dark sky trip, and I'm very aware that I've never said where I've taken it. So, but if we could all come together and build a database like that, I think that would be awesome. But give that app a try, iOverlander. If I can remember, I'll put it in the show notes, just so you can go check that out as well. So yeah, we'll have to look and see how it goes. I'll give a review on the gear after I take that trip and really get a chance to use it. I haven't even had clear skies outside one night for me to just go outside and play around with it yet. So that shows you just how bad it's been here, because believe me, I'm dying to get out and use it. But man, the device itself, it's so tiny. It fits in the palm of your hand. Like it makes the SkyGuider Pro look like a freaking CEM 120, It's just nuts how small it is. So I'm very happy that I'll be able to pack that down. I haven't taken I got like an extra cheaper camera bag. I'm not going to use my super fancy camera bag for this setup. Not yet anyway, but I'll likely buy a secondary one. Anyhow, I want to have a bag specifically set up for Milky Way shoots, because if I'm going to do this every new moon and, travel from place to place to get really cool shots, it'd be good to have a go bag, if you will, that I can use for those photo shoots. So on from the move, shoot, move, there's actually another piece of gear that I got since I last talked to you guys. And it's new glass. I'm very excited to announce I've got a little new glass. It's a new lens to me, but it's not at the same time. Let me explain. So I'm sure many of you guys know about the all-time great Rokinon lenses and astrophotography. Obviously, you have the very famous Rokinon 135. I also own that lens and love that lens for very wide, deep field stuff. But there's also the Rokinon 14 millimeter lens, which is just a phenomenal piece of kit for getting Milky Way shots. So they actually recently came out with a Rokinon 14 for the RF mount system. So if you don't know, Rokinon, also known as Sigma in certain areas, depending on what part of the world you live in, they have a beautiful 14 millimeter lens that is extremely wide field. If you don't know, the smaller the number, the wider the lens when it comes to lenses. So if I say a 14 millimeter lens, that's a really wide angle. Whereas if I say a 85 millimeter lens, that would be considered a telephoto lens, or like a zoomed in lens, if you want to think of it that way. But in any case, I owned the EF version of the Rokinon 14. And I bought a used copy of that lens from mpb.com, which is it's a cool site for buying used photography gear. And they do a really good job inspecting all of the gear before they sell it. They're not an affiliate or a sponsor of the show, just to be upfront with you. You can also check out keh.com for used gear. They do kind of the same thing as MPB. Anytime I'm checking one place, I always check the other to see what they have. But anyway, the copy of the lens that I got just wasn't really that good. It did not give me great results, in my opinion. And I don't know if it's just because it was a really old lens, or maybe the quality control wasn't great on it. I don't know. It could be a million different things. But when I saw that they had released the RF version of this lens, I knew I had to have it because, doing these trips, I really like having that Rokinon glass to take the Milky Way shots. I also own a 16 millimeter Canon RF lens that's f2.8 as well. But I don't know why the Rokinon just seems to do a little bit better with 14 millimeters. There's less coma and aberrations and what have you in the corners. So I prefer the Rokinon lens, and I have gotten to briefly test that out. I was able to get some Milky Way shots from the front yard here in the Bortle 7 almost 8 yard. It was actually kind of crazy. I put in that L Pro and got up at 3:00 in the morning. I think I talked about this before we took the week off, but yeah, man, it really impressed me with how well it was able to pick up the Milky Way from my incredibly light polluted skies. So I cannot wait to get it out to dark skies and have it sitting on top of that new Move Shoot Move Nomad. I'm telling you, it's going to be a killer combination. So the only thing that I don't have yet, and I don't know that I necessarily need it, I've got a couple of old intervalometers, just cheap ones I bought on Amazon for $15-20 or whatever. And they aren't very intuitive. After you figure out how to use them, they're easy enough to use, but just the instructions are bad. I wish somebody would make like a really nice intervalometer. Wouldn't that be great? Like maybe something that's not $20. Like I wouldn't mind spending $100 for a really nice intervalometer. Canon sells a wireless shutter, but it's not an intervalometer. It's just a wireless shutter. You can use the built-in intervalometer on the Canon R5 and R7, but it's kind of terrible and it's not intuitive at all. And I still am not great at using it because it'll, I won't get into details there, but it's just not great, the built-in one. You can make it work, but it's not ideal. So I'm still considering maybe getting a different intervalometer. if you know of a really great one and you'd like to recommend it to me, I would absolutely love for you to do that. Drop me an email at astrocast@gmail.com, and I'll make sure to say hello and thank you for doing that. But yeah, so we got our new Milky Way rig ready to go. Got this new moon trip planned in less than 2 weeks. Hopefully all those things combined will lower my overall stress level a good bit. I know I got to make some changes myself too, and then some stuff around the house, obviously, but I definitely think getting out under the stars is a excellent way to find your Zen spot and lower your blood pressure and just relax. So that's what I aim to do. And I aim to do a lot of it this summer. I hope that you guys do too. If you haven't, like I say, take a dark sky trip. If you do it once, you'll get hooked and you will want to do it again. I'm really hoping that I am very, very impressed by these Bortle 3, Bortle 2 skies that I'm going to visit. I know it's not Bortle 1, but like I say, on the East Coast, you really can't get true Bortle 1. So I think this is probably going to be about as good as it gets. And I'm still looking for the best possible place. I've got a few ideas. I got plenty of time, a little over a week to pick my final spot. So I'll be definitely looking into that as time marches on. If you guys know any good spots up in North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, within, a 3 to 5 hour drive from Charlotte, North Carolina, feel free to send them to me. I would love to get any tips. I looked at, we have a couple of observatories up that way if you go up into the Blue Ridge Mountains, but I don't think they seem very astrophotographer or amateur astronomer friendly. They seem more like science centers. I could be wrong about that. I haven't actually visited them. That's just based on my impression from their websites. I'm not going to name any places because, like I say, I've never visited them, so I'm not going to judge. But they were putting me off enough where I was like, I don't know if I want to go spend my whole night at that place. You know what I mean? I don't know if like there would be like a community event going on, maybe. Not that there's anything wrong with community events. I think they're great, but if I'm out doing a solo dark sky trip, I don't want to be at a community event. So anyway, I'll be keeping my eyes peeled. You know me, I'll be hunting all the graveyards down and all the national parks and what have you. I'm aiming for a national park. There are a couple of dark sky parks up in Virginia and West Virginia. And one day what I'd really love to do is just buy a small piece of land up there in the Blue Ridge Mountains for a summer vacation home for me and the family. I think that would be absolutely incredible. And the land is actually not that expensive if you know where to look. Obviously, you're not going to buy a piece of land in Asheville or some trendy big city. But if you're wanting to move to the middle of nowhere like me, then you can find quite a few good places if you know where to look. I got to find the right place, man. My wife, I think I've almost convinced her to move out of the city. Like I can tell that she's thinking about it. And she keeps saying that she wants to be around water. So when we were in Salem back in Halloween last year, we went up to Salem, Massachusetts. Beautiful town, by the way. If you get away from the touristy, terrible area that they have uptown for all the teenagers, you can have a great time exploring a lot of the historical sites. And it's right on the bay there and just a really gorgeous wharf area to check out. And she just had a wonderful time walking around the water. We both did. And we spent all day walking around out there. And I think ultimately, if I could find a place, man, it's hard to find dark skies along the coast, isn't it? Maybe if it was a big lake and we had like a cool setup, then maybe something like that would work. Anyway, I'm all ears. If anyone has suggestions, I would love to hear them. I want to take a quick moment here to thank our newest Patreon member by the name of Parrish. Parrish joined the... Did I mention Parrish last week? I don't know if I did or not. If I did, then there you go, Parrish. You get welcome twice. But it's weird because I don't normally take 2 weeks off or 1 week off, and not talk to you guys for 2 weeks. So I'm having to remember what I did and didn't talk about on the show. You'd be surprised. I listen to the show, every time it releases, I always listen to the episode, and I'll always find 3 or 4 things where I'm like, man, I said that wrong, or man, I botched that. But until you guys start sending in corrections, astrocast@gmail.com, I'm probably not going to have a corrections area. But if you ever want to, feel free. You can also dial 866-4-ASK-RU. That's 866-427-5766. If you ever want to leave a question or a comment for the show. But yeah, thanks, Parrish. Thanks for joining, man. It means a lot to me. We also had quite a few people order t-shirts. If you want to get yours, you can do that at qcru.com/store. Still working on getting the Astrocast domain down. I actually have some other really cool news that I wanted to share with you guys. I actually got my LLC approved last week. So QCRU Media LLC is officially an entity and is registered with the state of North Carolina. That actually opens up a lot more opportunities for the show and, for myself as a photographer, amongst other things. And I'm really, really excited about that. It kind of makes me, official, so to speak. So I've got an event I'm doing Saturday for a friend. I don't really charge her anything because she's a really good friend of mine and what she does is awesome. If you guys remember, I was actually a guest host on her show once. It's called The Backyard Naturalist. Debbie and Lori, shout out to those 2 awesome ladies, 2 really good friends of the show. Anyway, they do a live show in our local farmers market once a year, and I always do the photography for them when they do it. Sometimes they do it twice a year, but we always get there early and I do the photography for them, and they always, tip me or something along those lines, but I don't actually ask them for money because, like me, they're not making a whole lot of money on their podcast. At least I don't think they are. They do it because they love it and they love to spread the good word about nature and wildlife, birds, snakes, you name it, they talk about it. So if you ever want to check that show out, it's called The Backyard Naturalist. I was on the show once, so you can go back and find my episode. It's about light pollution. I'll link it in the show notes for you guys so you can check that out. Man, it is so cool having people send in photos wearing Astrocast shirts all across the world. We've got our listeners out in Switzerland and Belgium, the UK. It's just awesome every time I see it. It's so funny. One of our members mentioned that we're all pretty much the same guy. I was laughing so hard when he said it because we all have like beards and dark hair and glasses. We all are wearing the Astrocast shirt. So I don't know. You could be worse. That's for sure. Yeah. Shout out to everyone on the Patreon. You guys are awesome. And thank you so much for all the support. If you'd like to join the Patreon, you can do that at patreon.com/the Astrocast. You can join for as little as $1 a month and jump into our always lively Discord that I need to get more involved in. Like I said, I had to kind of step away from a lot of stuff over the last week for my health. But things will start calming down this weekend, I think. And then I'm going to start getting more involved. I also need to get out under the freaking stars, man. If we could get some clear skies here, that sure would be nice. But I'm looking for you, Captain Cumulus. You're always running your mouth in the chat about how many clouds you clear, but I don't see you over here clearing them. That's for sure. So I posted an update last week after the show went live about ZWO pulling out of the U.S. market. This was a real gut punch for me, and I'm sure lots of other astronomers and astrophotographers, because, if you don't know, ZWO is by far the number one manufacturer of astrophotography gear that we have access to. So they make kind of the best cameras. I mean, you could argue, QHY, Player One, et cetera. Player One also pulled out of the U.S. market, just so you know. Not sure about QHY yet. I'll have to look into that. But, by and large, if you're going to buy a astrophotography camera, chances are you are going to get a ZWO camera, and you can't do that now. They're sold out everywhere, and ZWO has not announced that they will be coming back to the U.S. market. This is due to the ongoing tariff disputes between our politicians and other countries. I'm not a fan of it at all. And I think, we're really privileged to be able to have the kind of money to throw around to buy things like astrophotography cameras. There's people that live in countries that are so poor, all they can do is make textiles and get paid, less than $1 a day to do it. Our whole economy runs because we have fat wallets in America. And you might not think you do, but if you're listening to this show right now in air conditioning, you are richer than 90% of the population on this earth. If you got clean drinking water, air conditioning, and you're listening to a podcast, just keep that in mind. But there's not really a whole lot more to say about it. They put out a statement. I saw it on their official Facebook page, said that they're going to attempt to set up something in America for manufacturing. I feel like every single company that has done this, though, has said that because they don't want to lose the goodwill of their patrons, obviously, for something that's completely out of their control. They're not going to, send over a $2,500 camera and then expect someone to pay, $5,800 for it because of tariffs. They know that they would, lose all their customers. So rather than damage the relationship that they have made with all of the astrophotographers in America, I believe they just decided it was better to not sell at all. And that's sad because we get a lot of new people that listen to this show. That our bread and butter is beginner to intermediate astrophotographers. I consider myself an intermediate astrophotographer. I don't consider myself an expert. I don't have a mono camera yet, as many of you know. I don't have a true dark sky location that I can remotely shoot from whenever I want. Am I going to have all those things one day? Absolutely. I plan to. But it won't be with a ZWO camera anytime soon because you can't get one. They're sold out everywhere. And like you say, ZWO is not shipping anymore yet. Now, will that change in the future? Probably. It probably will because, we've already seen the tariffs go from 145% down to 30%. So obviously there's going to be back and forth. I do know that a lot of our ports are empty in America, and it sucks to, not have a new astrophotography camera, but it's going to really suck when people can't get things like toilet paper and medicines, etc. I also want to make a correction. I said, if you happen to hear the update that I posted last week, I made a comment about China having a stranglehold on the insulin market. And I want to say I was wrong on that. China does not have a stranglehold on the insulin market. It's actually a lot of the precursors for antibiotics that are made in China that are not made in America. So stuff like that is what scares me. If people can't get medicine that they need to save their lives, because another country has all of it. And, whether you like it or not, we are a global economy. I'm going to leave it at that. Like I say, I don't like talking politics on this show, but this is going to have wide-reaching impacts for people that are not billionaires like me and you. If you're listening to this, I'm going to guess you're probably not a billionaire. But all I can say is I really hope everybody that wants to get into astrophotography can still get into it. I would say if you're looking to buy a new camera right now, there are options out there. You don't strictly have to go with the ZWO camera. I would recommend one to you by far if that was the first thing you were buying, like a 585 MC Pro. I've recommended to so many people because it's a great camera at a very reasonable price for an entry level, cooled camera. But there are other things you could do. Go to Cloudy Nights is an excellent forum that has a buy sell trade page, classified section. And I actually bought my first camera that I used for astrophotography exclusively there. It was a Astro modified Canon Rebel T3i. That's a very old camera now, and I wouldn't really recommend anyone buy a T3i at this point because the shutters are probably so old that they're going to disintegrate. But you can check them out, and people do buy and sell their gear on there pretty regularly. Just be very aware of who you're buying from. Make sure that they've got a reputation, that they've made sales before. If it's somebody who's making their very first sale, then I would just verify with them, do a very thorough verification. Maybe ask if they don't mind getting on a call with you for a few minutes and talking about the camera. You could look at Astro modified cameras. If you can find a DSLR, there are companies that do Astro modifications for them if you're wanting to, exclusively use the camera for astrophotography. So there are still ways that you can get into this hobby. It's just not as easily accessible as it was just a month ago because of these changes that are taking place. So I hope that you're able to find everything that you need. If you got any questions about cameras, you can always feel free to email me at ruastrocast@gmail.com. You can leave a message on our voice line, 866 4AskRu, or you can join the Patreon for $1 a month and jump in the Discord with us and ask all the questions you want. So I hope everybody gets what they're looking for, though. And I really, really hope these trade wars end soon because they are not good for us normal people. All right, guys, let's talk about a recommendation for this week. I want to tell you about a game that I've been playing that I am really enjoying. And I am a old school RPG gamer. I grew up playing games like Zelda and Final Fantasy. I've never been a Dungeons and Dragons guy, but I definitely get the appeal there. I've never played it, never had anybody to play with. Have played things like Baldur's Gate and definitely very much enjoyed those, which are obviously based on D&D. But anyway, JRPGs have always held a really special place in my heart. The old Super Nintendo Final Fantasy games are some of my, absolute favorites of all time. And they haven't been great as of late. I got both the Final Fantasy VII remakes, and while I enjoyed them, I don't know what it is about Square, but it seems like they throw everything they can at the wall with the combat to see if it sticks. And in my opinion, it usually does not stick. So, everybody's always looking for that great turn-based combat JRPG that still has, up-to-date visuals, really great storytelling, etc. And boy, oh boy, have I found the game. If you haven't heard of it yet, it's called Claire Obscure Expedition 33. I know that's a mouthful. Most JRPGs are a mouthful. It's actually a French company that produced this game, and it is very much a French game. So you're going to see things like, classical music throughout. It's like a concerto is basically the soundtrack. People have very French, dress ensembles. There's a mime in the game. So like it's definitely got a lot of French to it, but that's not a bad thing. It actually paints a very realistic lived in environment is what you see at what these people are going through. And the premise of the story is actually really unique. I'm only about 10 hours into it so far, but essentially there is this character called the Paintress, who is this like giant monster thing that lives way off in the distance. And essentially she appears one day and she paints a 100 in the sky that you can see from, 1,000 miles away or whatever, because it's so big. And everybody on the planet that's 100 years old instantly vanishes like a Thanos snap. They just kind of disintegrate into nothing. A year goes by and then she repaints it as a 99. And then everyone who's 99 years old vanishes into nothing. So you set off as the 33rd expedition, and the game actually opens up with one of the main characters losing a loved one who was 34. So that's why they call it Expedition 33, because they're the 33-year-old people who, if they don't stop this villain, supposedly, I think that she might not be a villain, but we'll have to see. By the end of the year, then all of the 33-year-olds will disappear. Anyway, the story is actually really good. I know that sounds weird and far out there, but they really, really make it work in this game somehow. The graphics are gorgeous, and they run really well on old hardware. Like, I'm playing it predominantly in my living room because it's a great game that you can play with a controller. You don't have to use a mouse and keyboard. It's also on Xbox. I know you can play it on Xbox. I think it might be on PlayStation. Not 100% sure. But anyway, old school turn-based RPG, and just really, really well done with some very interesting mechanics that don't make it feel like old or stale. There's a lot of stacking. There's the, crossplay you can have between characters, and highly, highly, highly recommend you check it out. Another awesome thing about it, even though it's very much, in my opinion, a AAA game as far as visuals and storytelling and action are concerned, it's only $50. And how great is that? Because darn near every game these days is $70 or more. Did anyone pre-order a Switch 2? I did pre-order a Switch 2. I don't care if Mario Kart's $80. I have to have it. Switch is the only console that I still have. My wife's an Xbox player. She plays Xbox, and I actually got her a Steam Deck, and she plays that more than anything now. So I guess she's more of a PC gamer. Go figure. But anyway, Switch 2, had to have it. Mario Kart World, open world Mario Kart, looks incredible. Can't wait to get it. I think that's coming out in early June. And then I guess final little pop culture thing I will mention to you. I saw today that Lego is releasing a new Simpsons set. So I am a huge fan of The Simpsons. Like, it's had a bigger impact on me than any pop culture in my life by far. I'm one of those guys who's constantly quoting The Simpsons, and it drives my wife insane. But anyway, years ago, before I got back into Lego, they released a Simpsons house. So, Evergreen Terrace, 742 Evergreen Terrace. And they also released the Quickie Mart. So those two sets, at the time, they were like $200. And I was like, I'm just paying $200 for Legos, but I didn't know anything about Lego back then. Knowing what I know now, I would have gladly paid $200 for those sets. I didn't get them, and Lego retires sets. So after they've been in circulation for a while, they pull them out of circulation so they can let new stuff out, because they're constantly making new stuff at Lego. But anyway, they are doing a Krusty Burger set. So it's going to be $200. I think it comes out June 6th. It's either June 1st or June 6th. There's a gift with purchase through Lego. So if you go online and buy it, or go to a Lego store and buy it, they'll give you a Simpsons living room gift. And that'll go perfect with my 3D printed Simpsons TV that plays seasons 1 through 10 on a nonstop random loop. That's a really cool project I did. You can check it out on my TikTok if you ever want to see it. But anyway, super, super cool. Definitely enjoy that. So guys, I'm, like I say, I'm getting back into the swing of things. I know we normally go a full hour, and I know I'm a few minutes short of the full hour. I hope you'll cut me a little bit of slack, though. I want to make sure we get this episode up tonight, because I don't want to keep anyone waiting any longer. But we will be back next week. Actually, I'm trying to get the interview hopefully before next week's show. We'll see how things go, but I'm trying to get that set up now. I just got to finish configuring some software, but that is coming in the very near future. So couple really cool interviews on the horizon. So we hope that you will join us for that. So you have been listening to the Astrocast. I am your host, Rue. And as always, clear skies.